joy is one of those things that it's kind of like, how do you describe bicycle riding for someone who's never been in that situation before?
Yeah.
For someone who's never experienced joy in the corporate world, working for themselves, how do you help them discover that?
First, that we need to know what we're looking for. I think it's the things that you do that give you energy. Like you are more energized as you do them and after you do them than before you started. And there's plenty of things that I have experienced that I'm like, oh, I could do that all day long. It was like the not just fun, but fulfilling. And what's kind of crazy is like, I'll also talk about, I've had moments when there was a conflict with a client and they were upset and they had this point of view. And I was like, oh, worried. And I went in and we talked it through. And it was like what I would call a grown-up conversation. We had a very grown-up conversation and we worked through things. And then when after it was done, I was like, that was like among the most joyful things I've done. Why? Because
Okay,
it was like,
so
it required like a lot of skill and focus and carefulness, and you have to be 100% in the moment for that. And I mean, I wouldn't say that I could do that all day long, but if you've ever been in a situation, I would, here's another example of that. So difficult time with client, death of a loved one, going through that process. I would call that when you're with them and you're experiencing the last moments of someone, and you know you're distraught and bereaved and all of these terrible things, but afterwards you think like back on that time period, and in many cases I can feel a joy for that. So I call that soul joy. It's when I feel like we as ourselves, going back to enlightenment, are expanded as people. Like I did a really hard thing and I felt alive. Like we feel like I am having a full human experience right now. And I think that when I'm having difficult times at work, it doesn't have to be like all fun all the time. That's why when the guy was like, we're hired to do the stuff clients don't want to do, I do stuff all the time. It's like a really hard thing, like getting out of my comfort zone or helping a client to get out of their comfort zone or dealing with somebody who's like in pain. But when you're in those moments, it's a real human experience. And I think it's expansive. And I'm like, I that's the things that I want to have more of in my life. Not necessarily the bad versions, but I don't want to not have that experience. You know, we need the whole range of human experience to expand as people.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's actually what I was trying to distinguish, because when people hear joy, they think like, happy, lucky all the time. And yes, there's part of that, but really it's much deeper than that, because ultimately fulfillment is like that visceral, like, wow, like I'm in peak experience, whether it's going through the highest of highs or the lowest of lows, you experience aliveness from that.
Yeah,
Is that
definitely.
accurate?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And to experience yourself in new territory of being brave. I think that's a very joyful experience.
Hmm.